Good evening, everyone. I'm Ellen Sutter with ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Tonight, our guest is Kristi Tailor. We're going to discuss her book, A Winter's Kiss. I hope I said that right. Do tell us about yourself and about this book.
Thank you again for having me. So my name is Kristi Tailor, and I'm an independent published author. My genres focus primarily in interracial romance, contemporary romance, multicultural romance. The book we'll be discussing tonight, Kiss, previously titled A Winter's Kiss, came out, I want to say maybe 6 years ago. That's when it was first published, and it was republished last year.
Yes. I
Yes.
do love this story. I do love it. And give us the backdrop of the books, just in case anybody haven't read it yet. Let's tell us the backdrop of the book.
So Kiss is the first installment in an 8-book series, a Winter's Tale series, and it focuses on a woman by the name of Charlotte Toutant, who's in her late 20s, and she goes through this tragic situation around the holidays. And through this situation, she has the courage to move from Baltimore, Maryland to Manhattan, New York, where she starts a new life and meets new prospective lovers and meets new friends and goes on this journey of self-discovery.
Oh, I'm sorry. I enjoyed the characters. I want you to tell us about Charlotte, Tard, Margaret, Manuel, Babette, and my favorite, Adeline and Nicholas. Do tell us about their characters, their, story behind them.
So Charlotte is a very passive character in the beginning of the series. And the reason I call her passive is because she's a people pleaser in the highest regard. She spends most of her time wanting to please her parents, wanting to please her siblings, even wanting to please Nicholas, who is the hero in the story. And it's not until book 4, I want to say, that she finds herself and really discovers who she is as a woman. But focusing on book 1, Charlotte is a woman who is hurting very deeply. She feels a sense of betrayal from the people who she loves most, the people who she thought would be in her corner, her family, and she doesn't know how to recover from that. And she's also an introvert. She's not very expressive of her thoughts. She keeps a lot bottled up, which is shown in the story, not even showing her feelings for Nicholas, which the reader will see from the very beginning. Starting chapter 1, you see that she has feelings for Nicholas, but she doesn't admit to those feelings for quite some time. And then we have Nicholas, who's the hero in the story. He is this prep boy from Manhattan, born and raised. He comes from a family of riches. He's grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth, so to speak. And you can tell that by his arrogant disposition, but he's very endearing in the fact that he really cares about Charlotte. And he proves time and time again in book 1 that he cares about Charlotte. And again, his feelings are very clear to the reader from the very beginning of the story, though he is more extroverted and absolutely gives Charlotte all the clues that he wants more than a friendship with her, but she just won't, take the bait. Charlotte has 2 sisters, Adeline, who is her younger sister. She's a teenager, and then Marguerite, who's the middle daughter, and she's in her early 20s. Marguerite is a very selfish, self-centered character. She is very much poison, not only to herself, but to others in the story. And she's very entitled. She is a secondary character. She's not a main character. And the reason I did that is because the damage that she has done to Charlotte and her family was done in the prologue of the first book, but it's so devastating that I don't need her to be a main character in order for the reader to see that it's a long-lasting effect on what she did to Charlotte, both mentally and emotionally. She has crippled her sister. And so she's a secondary character, but I leave such a bitter taste in the reader's mouth when it comes to Marguerite from the very beginning of book 1 that you don't really need to see her much. Her name is mentioned in every book, and you get bits and pieces of her in every book, but you don't really need much about her. And then you have Adeline, who's your favorite, and she's also a lot of readers' favorites. Has a lot of chutzpah. She's very straight to the point. She's the youngest of the sisters, but the most mature out of the sisters. She is very opinionated, and she's very quick with her words. She's very witty and sassy, and she was a pleasure to write. She creates that comedic relief in the story. And then you have the parents, Manuel and Babette. They are the traditional Creole parents, always in your business, always wanting to know what's going on, when it's going on, how it's going on, and why they weren't involved in the decision making. And because there's so much involved in Charlotte's life and their daughter's lives, they cross a lot of boundaries that eventually parents should have when their kids reach, the age. Charlotte's almost 30 years old, and her mother still has zero boundaries. And you see that throughout the story. And I think that's a very important, I did that intentionally because when I was writing this book, I was around 24 years old, about to be 25 years old. And I was having a conversation with my mother about boundaries, and she doesn't have any, and she doesn't want any. And so I mirrored some of Babette's personality after my mother, not so much in the sense of, and I don't want to spoil anything, but not so much in the sense of how she allowed her daughter to be betrayed. That's not mirrored after my mother. But what is mirrored after my mother is that continual, we're family, and whatever happened, leave it in the past, because we're family and you have to move forward because we're family. That whole understanding of we're family. And that's all that matters. That should take over the trajectory of everything else that went through. And Babette is very much so. It happened, but it's your sister, forgive her. She hurt you, but it's your sister, forgive her. So yeah, the parents are really funny, but I do find that I'm 5 books into the series. Readers have said to me that they love her father by book 3, but they still hate her mother by book 5. And I didn't expect that, because she really, when you get to know her mother, she's just very endearing. She's very loving. She's one of those mothers who it doesn't matter how old you are, her kids are her babies. So I thought that would come, play out a little differently, that they would begin to care about her mother. But a lot of readers, especially in the comments I've received on Goodreads and Facebook and Barnes and Nobles, they hate her mother, even up to book 5.
Hate her still? Oh my goodness. I just can't wait to read the rest of them. But what made you, and folks will read the story, no, we're not giving a lot away. I usually give big spoilers, but not this time. You guys are nosy like me. But what made you weave this portrayal of this kind so close?
When I was thinking of what Charlotte could go through, I knew I wanted Charlotte to leave Maryland. I knew I wanted Charlotte to be betrayed, but I've seen it. I'm a book reader. I read a lot. I read a whole lot, and a lot of betrayals when it comes to romances, it's always boyfriend cheats on girl with friend, or boyfriend or husband cheats on wife with a coworker or colleague is a really big one, or you even have neighbor is a really big one. I haven't read too many books where I haven't read any books actually, where fiance cheats on high school sweetheart and relationship of 10 years with sister. And so I've always believed, write what you want to read. Like what is one thing that if I was reading a book and I read this and I would, oh my gosh, what? That was that moment. And I wanted that, oh my gosh, what type of moment. And I think I successfully accomplished that. And I also needed something where I did not want Charlotte to have an easy get over this situation. If it was just her boyfriend or her fiance who cheated on her, if she met Nicholas and had some type of physical attraction to Nicholas or emotional attraction to Nicholas, she may have forgotten about Todd and moved on. And then it wouldn't be a series that's built off of her growing, right? It would be a duet, maybe 2 books of the most. But because the portrayal was so deep and it becomes so embedded in her personality. A woman who did not have low self-esteem, who now has low self-esteem because of it. And a woman who wasn't a self-doubter, who now doubts herself because of it. The betrayal her sister put her through, and that her parents put her through, and that her best friend, ultimately Todd, because they've been friends since elementary school, put her through. Now we have a real problem, because that's not something that you're going to overcome in one book. That's not realistic. So for her to overcome such a betrayal in 1 year, that's not going to work. But I needed something that was going to, you know, really push the drama as far as her and Nicholas went, because the story, the love story is Charlotte and Nicholas. Todd really is irrelevant. Marguerite's really irrelevant, but the turmoil they put on her is relevant. And so I needed something that really would punch Charlotte in her chest and really do something to the readers themselves, that when they're just going to fall in love with her because of what she went through.
Yeah, I saw that. And like you said, every part that you played and every character that played his part, especially I thought that one particular scene where Todd, I thought that he was coming to grips with he's not so good with who he is, and that he is making a big mistake, and that he was going to confront that mistake. But then when I see him in a different light for showing the stripes that he do have, I said, oh no, I cannot deal with Todd. I can't. And I did not want to deal with him. What was Babette's relationship with her girls individually?
Babette loves all of her daughters, but Charlotte is her firstborn. And there's a really deep connection with Charlotte. And when you get to the end of the first book and she writes the letter to her daughter, it's very emotional in the sense that she's pouring her heart out to her daughter. And she says to her, one day you'll have children and you realize how much they mean to you, and that you love them even more than you love the truth, because that's what it bottled down to. She loved Charlotte more than she loved telling Charlotte the truth. And so Charlotte is dearest to her. That's her firstborn daughter. She has a great connection with her. And Charlotte's the one who left and moved away. And so she loves Charlotte, and she loves all of her kids, but Charlotte's the one that she really, really, really has a close bond with. Then you have Marguerite. Marguerite's the middle child. She's the wayward one. She's the one that, you know, gets into everything. And like I said, she's very selfish. She's very manipulative. She's very just out there. And you see that her mother caters to her. But I think readers, depending on how the reader's interpreting it, she doesn't cater to her because she's a favorite or because she doesn't think what she did was wrong. She caters to her because she knows that she's the weakest of all three of her daughters. It has to be an understanding that what type of low self-esteem could you possibly have that out of all the men in the world that you could have gotten, you went for the one that was totally off limits. Like there's some type of something inside of you that makes you so wickedly evil, so horrible. And so Babette doesn't cater to Marguerite in the sense that she's her favorite, or Charlotte, forgive her because, you know, I love her more than I love you, or any of those things. It's more so she knows that there's some type of infliction in her middle daughter that pushes her to behave in the way that she behaves. And so it's more of a, I'm doing all I can to be there for this person who clearly is not all there up there. Because think about it, you have sisters who, in what world would you not, I know you wouldn't, I know I wouldn't think, oh, you know what? I'm going to sleep with my sister's fiance and not care. In what world does that, you know? And so there's something really sick about Marguerite. And then you have Adeline, and Adeline's the baby, but Adeline, again, out of all three of them, she's the wisest of the three, you know? Manuel and Babette, they're overbearing, but in a sense, they also are very manipulative parents. And you see that they're very manipulative. And even though Manuel feeds off of his wife, he's still manipulative in the sense. And so their relationship, both relationships with Adeline, is really funny. I want to talk about a scene when when Adeline was eating dinner and her father tried to make her feel bad because she was gaining weight. And he's telling her that she shouldn't eat so much. And then her mother says, oh no, eat more, eat more. Adeline is just one of those individuals who thinks for herself, who could care less. And she is the baby, but she can't wait to leave and move away and be on her own in college. Her mother is not as overbearing with her as she is with her other two. It's like the third one, you know, those commercials, you have one and, you know, you're so possessive and obsessed, and then you have another one that's a little better. And by the time you have the third one, they're pretty much raising themselves. That's Adeline. She's just, I'm unbothered. That's a good word. Adeline's very unbothered, and her mother is very unbothered with her as well.
Yes, yes. Now, Charlotte and her siblings, what are their individual relationships like?
Charlotte and Marguerite, the sister who betrayed her, were very, very close. They're close in age, and so they grew up together. Adeline is still a teenager. She's only 17. So whereas Charlotte is in her late 30s and Marguerite is in her mid 30s, you have Adeline, who's still a teenager. So when Charlotte was in college, if you think about it, Adeline was still in elementary school. And so Charlotte and Marguerite grew up together and they were very close. They were best friends. And that's why the betrayal hurt so much. So it's that dynamic of when you have several siblings, but Charlotte and Marguerite are stair steps. They did everything together. And then you have the little sister who kind of came out of, you know, years and years later, like, oh, where'd she come from? So Charlotte looked at Marguerite, past tense, as her best friend. And that's why the betrayal hurt so badly. She looks at Adeline like her baby sister. And so you'll see as the series continues that Charlotte is getting to know Adeline. I made it very clear in the first book that she hasn't seen Adeline in a long time. And so starting in the second book, Adeline becomes a main character by book 6. And she is very much looks up to her sister, looks up to Charlotte, and Charlotte takes her under her wing. But Charlotte and Adeline become very, very close, but they're not very close in the first book or even the second, because there's such a huge difference in age. They're like 11 years apart.
And I can see that. And just seeing how Adeline is in the book, I do see her strength. Mm-hmm. And I can see her. If she were the big sister, nothing would happen in the way that it has. And so it seems like it was always from a reader aspect, and looking at Adeline, she clearly didn't know what was going on. I really believe that she clearly didn't know, based upon how she's very direct with her questions.
She is. She did not have a clue what was going on. And she's very, very honest to a fault. To a fault, she's very honest. And she looks out for her sister. There's a scene when she tells Nicholas, you know, if you two are arguing, because there's a little scam that's going on with, I don't want to give it away, but there's a little scam that's going on with Charlotte and Nicholas, and no one knows, not even Adeline. And she says, if you're arguing, just pretend that you're the perfect couple for Charlotte's sake. Just pretend, you know. She looks out for her older sister and she knew nothing about it. Yeah. And she's a peacemaker. She's like, well, do you think you guys can talk? And, you know, in the second book, I do want to share this. I try to use scripture in every book, whether it's through prayer or whether it's scripture directly from the Bible. I always try to incorporate my Christianity into my work, even though I'm not a Christian fiction writer. I still want my audience to be very clear on my beliefs. And so there is a prayer in the first book at Grace is said, but in the second book, there is a scripture that Adeline says to Charlotte while they're walking on the beach. She again brings up Marguerite and asks Charlotte if she plans on forgiving her. And Charlotte says no. And then Adeline says to her, what does the scripture say? If you want your Father in heaven to forgive you, then you have to forgive others. And again, you see like the 17-year-old, the baby, has more common sense than all of them, you know, sometimes even more common sense than her own mother. You know?
Yes, and mentioning back with the prayer in book one, her feelings, she went beyond her feelings because her mom asked her to pray. She was
Mhm.
not feeling that, especially after 2 years of being away from them. And also
Mhm.
to just the very thought of thinking of her family, just couldn't stomach being there. And as readers will read it, they'll see how that scene played out. But even through going through her pain and to come out with that prayer, I'm so glad that Babette said that was a beautiful prayer. I didn't think she was going to say anything.
Mhm.
I thought her mom was, just, you know, everything that they did to get Charlotte there and how they would seem so distant, even in her being there. It's just a lot of
Mhm.
trickery. And there were
Mhm.
points as a reader, I was like, how dare mom get involved when they will know. They will know. I really don't want to give it away, but they will
Oh
know
my
about
goodness.
that.
When
They
I
will
wrote that
know.
scene, it's so funny you bring that up. When I wrote that scene at the dinner table, I thought, wow, the nerve. I mean, who doesn't want to say thanks to God? But the nerve, there's so many people who could have said it. She could have said it as the woman of the house. Her husband could have said it as the man of the house at the end of the table. You could have gotten your youngest daughter to say it. You could have got, I'm sorry to say it, but the whore of Babylon, Marguerite, to say it. You could have asked your son-in-law to say it. But you go to the one person who feels so ostracized, so
Yes.
humiliated. You could, when I wrote that scene, I hope you got it and other readers got it and will get it. That Charlotte just wanted to go under the table. She just wanted to like fall under the table and disappear. To have to sit across from the person that was your best friend and that you've known since you were a child, and have him do to you what he did, and have to sit across from the person who is your kid sister. And I made sure that the audience, I had threw flashbacks in, and I talked about Thanksgiving past and their, their habits of watching The Wizard of Oz every Thanksgiving on repeat, and how Charlotte gave Marguerite a special name. And I even talked about how when she went into Marguerite's room and the paint all over the walls, and how she helped her paint the walls, these recollections of how close they were. I wanted to make sure that the audience got that. I didn't give recollections between Adeline and Charlotte, and that was intentional because I wanted the audience to see that Charlotte has always been there for Marguerite, right? And then I let the reader know about how Charlotte and Todd went, they were best friends, they were neighbors since they were in elementary school, and then he moved away, and he would come back on weekends, and they ended up going to the same college together. They've been best friends since they were wee little wobbits. And so the betrayal is so deep. And now these two people who have zero care about her feelings are sitting across from her. And now she has to be the one to say grace. It was so many things happening in that scene. One, it was that through God's grace, you can get through anything, right?
Right.
Even heartache, It was also showing how her mother, again, has no boundaries, right? I want our family fixed, and I don't care how I have to do it to get it fixed. If I have to humiliate you further or make you feel uncomfortable, I want my family fixed. And it also showed, because after her mother, Babette, said, "That was beautiful, Charlie," her sister, Marguerite, says, "It really was." And it's
At that moment, Kristi, I was like, shut your mouth. I feel like, shut your mouth. Why are you talking? That's how I felt like, why are you talking? And so I was glad that you showed that she could have peace with God first, and then with her family, because really that prayer was about her heart. So I like that. And it may have seemed like it wasn't spot on, but I would say as a reader looking in, it was spot on to give us a change of heart as a reader at the table. I mean, we felt that spot, like you said. She went upstairs, she was reminiscing about, her sister and her love. And so I needed to see that. I needed to know, what were they like at first? And so I thought I was going to see some reminiscence of Adeline, because it's her room. You know what I'm saying? First of all. And so that was really good. I really liked how you did that. That was really good. I'm going to enjoy this story. So you said there's 5 books in this story?
There are 5 books that are out, that are published. The last, it's Kiss, and I have a, I hope you can see it. This is the first book in the series. This is Kiss. And then the second book is Promise. The third is Vow. The fourth is Secret. The fifth is Seduction. And then it's 3 more books coming out summer of 2022. So summer of next year, there are 3 books coming out, 1 June, 1 July, and 1 August. And those books are the last 3 in the series. It's Deception, Embrace, and Fate, the last 3 books in the series. And so the story starts off again with Charlotte and Nick, and you see why she got to Manhattan, right? Because of the betrayal. But the series is solely about Charlotte and Nick. It's not about her family. It's not, and in the second book, it's more so about his family. So the first book, you get the dynamic.
Oh my goodness, wait 1 minute. His family, because you did give us a glimpse in the book about his family. Oh my goodness. His family was bad as well. So I'm glad you gave that backstory, because he's a really good man. Surely he has a good family. Surely he does have a good family. You opened that back door and let us readers see what was going on.
His family makes Charlotte's family look like angels on the poor pit in the church. His family, and the thing is, Charlotte's parents, again, it's all about culture, right? Charlotte's family is, her parents are overbearing because that's the Creole culture, you know? I can't speak from any other gays than the gays that I know. And as a Creole woman, I know that parents from Creole backgrounds, Cajun backgrounds, are very overbearing. But I have one of my best friends is Korean, and her parents are very overbearing. And then I have a good friend who's Nigerian from the Igbo tribe, and her parents are very, very overbearing. So I think it's a cultural thing, but when you look at Nicholas's parents, it has nothing to do with culture. It has everything to do with class. He comes from an upper class family, and Charlotte is Black. And his father is disgusted that he chose this Black girl, middle class. If you're going to choose a Black girl, at least choose one with money. And he makes that very clear in the early part of the second book. I don't mind spoiling this. Nicholas comes from an environment where they tell him who he's going to marry. And he was engaged to get married as a teenager. He was promised to someone, and someone was promised to him as a teenager before he even finished college. His older brother, who you'll meet in the second book, was supposed to marry a family friend so that the 2 businesses can merge through marriage. And his brother said, no, I won't. And he left and disappeared, but didn't let his family know where he was. He left, dropped out of college because he couldn't, he was refused to live off their dime, and he left. And so who was next? Who was left? Nicholas was left. Fine. He's Caleb's not going to marry her, but you will. And Caleb and Nicholas loves money. Caleb could do without money. And you really get, the second book is about Nicholas's family, and you really get the inside of Nicholas. So whereas the first book focused on Charlotte, the second book focuses on Nicholas. And you find out that Nicholas was in his mind, so I won't inherit my trust. If I don't marry her, then I guess I'm marrying her. It was very much that simple for Nicholas. And so you get to see the dynamic. And so Nicholas is a really sweet guy, but he has his own problems. And you see those problems very, very, very quickly in book 2. Nicholas's mother says to Charlotte, I don't think you're strong enough to be with my son. I think you're going to get your heart broken several times before you leave this earth. And if you don't grow a backbone, it's not going to be good for you. And she is not, his mother's very snobbish, but she's not hateful. His father is very prejudiced. His mother's not, but his mother is very honest. and just looking at Charlotte, and Charlotte's very passive and she's very meek and she's very soft spoken, and she's just, there's really no oomph behind her in the second book or the first. And so she's easily to walk over and manipulate. And so because of that, his mother saw it and she says, I don't think it's going to end well for you and my son. I know him. I've known him for all his 28 years. And I'm telling you, you're not gonna last, you know? So it's a struggle for it, you know, but I've heard from readers that you go down a rabbit hole in this series and you can't really get out, you know, because
I was wondering about that because it sounds like it gets really meaty. The first book, if you would show it again, Kiss, you leave us with a very good cliffhanger that we wonder what is going to happen with Nicholas and Charlotte's relationship, or if it's kind of like, or if there is a relationship.
Yeah,
you know, because you see that and then you end with the cliffhanger. So we're thinking, okay, did she pick him? Because there's some things that happen before that ending, before that cliffhanger, that leads you to believe, did Charlotte go back home? Did she go back with them? Is she mad at him because of him being there for her, but at the same time she feeling in her own feelings of how she really feels. Hold on. Go ahead.
Yes, when the book comes to an end for book one for Kiss, when the book comes to an end, I wanted to be able to weave in his family, Nicholas's family, in a smooth transition. So, and I don't want to give it away, but I think it was really neatly woven in on why they're going to be where they are in book two, how they're going to manage while they're there, and what foolery they're going to continue on with. As far as Nicholas and Charlotte go at the end of book one, Nicholas was very flirtatious through the entire book. Nicholas showed that he was jealous in the first book. Remember, she went on that date and then he came up and you could tell by he was very jealous. He, was there for her. He made sure that he picked her every time. He lied for her. He played games for her that weren't even games for him to play. And so you knew from the very beginning that he was going very hard for her. At the end, when she finally explores her emotions and feelings for him, it's him who says, whoa, wait a minute, and so, and I needed that to happen because I needed for Charlotte to want to give more. It would have been so easy I don't want to spoil it, but it would have been so easy if he said yes. And that scene played out, which it could have played out. But then what? I wanted Charlotte to have to work for it because she's not, I just wanted her to be stronger, and if Nicholas came too easy, it wasn't she wasn't going to gain anything really from that. And I just wanted her to fight for something, she didn't fight for her relationship with Todd. I don't think she should have. She shouldn't have, she shouldn't have, but she should have fought for something. She could have yelled a little louder. She could have called her mother and told her mother how she felt. She ran away. And he says it at the end, when are you going to stop running? And she just she runs. She's a runner, instead of facing problems head on, she runs. She wanted to sneak out. She snuck out before her parents woke up. She's a runner. She didn't want to face her parents and say goodbye. She didn't want to face her siblings and say goodbye. So she leaves in a nick of night, and Nick says, aren't you going to call your parents? Oh, I'm sure they're up. I left the note by the coffee maker. She's just a runner. She's a runner. And I just needed her to be stronger. I did. I needed for her to be stronger. Even down to, if you remember the part when her good friend Patricia hooked her up on the blind date. And she says, I'm not going. And then she says, well, I guess he's just going to wait out there. I personally would have been like, well, you know what? I guess he is going to wait out there. And when he's cold, he'll go home. But no, not Charlotte, not the people pleaser. She just, fine, I'll go. I don't want to go, but I'll go. I don't really like him, but I'll keep dating him. I don't think he's my type, but I'll keep dating. I just needed her to be stronger. you know.
Yes. And so give us those, show the book again, just for those who probably just came on. That's book 1. And you said
Yes.
the other 3 books will drop sometime when? The other 3 books?
Yes, the last 3 books, there are 8 books in the series. 5 are already out. Kiss, Promise, Vow, Secret, and Seduction are already out. And then the last 3 books in the series, Deception, Embrace, and Fate, come out summer of 2022. Deception comes out in June, Embrace comes out in July, and Fate comes out in August. So by August of next year, the last 3 books will be out and the 8-book series will be completed.
Oh, wonderful. So those other ones are out already. So we're gonna have to pop those on here on this feed so we can get them. So I'm looking forward to that. So that so those other books, so with Kiss, those other 5 that you're talking about, that will be the second. So it does fall in series. So we're just getting the next fresh batch of them.
Yeah. So there are 4 more books out after Kiss, and then the last 3 come out in summer of 2022.
I will be reading the whole series.
I think you enjoy it. And you know what? By the end of the second book, I think you're going to reach out to me and say, how dare you? How the second book is heartbreaking in a really beautiful way. It's very heartbreaking. And you know, I think I did a really good job, and this is why. I got a review from a reader who read 3 other books of mine. And so she's been a reader of mine for years. And this was the 4th book she read from me. And she said that after the second book in the series, she will never read anything from me again. I was devastated when I got that review. The review was long and very detailed. She would never read anything from me again because of how I ended the second book. I don't want to ruin it. How I ended the second book and what I did to Charlotte at the end of the second book, and how dare I? I'm paraphrasing. She was so livid. And she's read, like I said, this was the 4th book of mine that she's read. And I know that because on Amazon, you know, when you have a reader list, a group of readers who continuously support you. Thank you to all my readers over the years. Readers who continuously support you, their names on Amazon don't change. So if it's Brittany King under Kiss, and then under you know, Being Yours, Loving You, I Gifted, Kiss, and then now Promise, I see the same image of Brittany King on all the, so I'm like, oh, somebody, Brittany King brought my book again. She said she'll never read, and that wasn't her name, but she said she would never read anything from me. And so as I just recently finished my double master's in English literature and creative writing, and I was speaking to one of my professors in my class about the experience of getting reviews. And she said to me, she said, you know what, Christian, my legal name, she says, you know what, Christian, that was the greatest review you could have ever received. And let me tell you why. If you pushed that button so deeply that your reader was so engrossed in these 2 characters that they felt emotionally broken for your main character, you did a damn good job, excuse my language. And I thought, she's not reading because it's not greatly edited, because it is. She's not reading because the plot isn't well written, because it is. She's not reading because I broke her heart. And I know that probably sounds terrible, but it's great because I know how to break hearts in my writing. And what better compliment could I have gotten? So that 1-star review, it's better than 10 5-star reviews, because it means that my writing is so dynamic that I can break your heart with words. And you felt so conflicted with what I did to Charlotte and Nicholas in book 2 that you said you will never again, because there's no telling what I'll write. So I'm like, wow, that 1-star review topped so many 5-star reviews, because it really showed me, wow, you're a great writer.
That
So
is wonderful. That is wonderful because
yeah.
I wondered about that. And since you're talking about that, I think that's a very good encouragement for other authors to
Mhm.
with getting these reviews, because I do write reviews, and it's very hard to get a 5 from me just to begin it. You have to really work hard, because I'm one of those readers like that. And
Mhm. I think
I'm
you'll
an
get the book.
honest, you're welcome. And so I'm an honest book review. I don't care if I know you. I don't care if you're
Mhm.
my cousin, my mother, my friend. I'm not going to give you stars to make you feel good.
Oh no.
And just
Mm-mm.
like I've heard a lot of authors say they got these and you embrace those, and some people can't take it. They cannot take
Oh
it. And I think we should
yeah.
not fall in love with our work where we can't correct it. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am. And you have to know that not everybody is gonna like everything that you write, you know. I love mac and cheese, but I love it when my mom makes it, and I love it when my aunt makes it. But when my uncle makes it, I don't like it. It doesn't mean I don't like mac and cheese. It just means that I have a different taste, you know. And so you can't expect, if 100 people read your book, you can't expect all 100 to like it, you know. It's all about taste, and sometimes the taste is just a little off, and that's okay. But you have to know that you go into a story, writing the story. Again, it comes back to write stories that you want to read, write stories that haven't been written, write stories that when you pick up your book, you're like, oh, and you're laughing and you're sad and you're feeling all the emotions that the readers feel. And if you've done that, then you've done one heck of a job, and you can set that project aside and move on to the next one. I don't believe in writing. I don't believe in changing the plots of stories or changing characterization based off of readers' likes, because that doesn't make for a truthful story. But I do believe taking constructive feedback and using that in the future. So if a reader says, I feel like the story ended abruptly and that I didn't really feel satisfied with the ending, well, you know what you can do? The next book you write, you make sure that the alpha and beta readers that you choose really focus on the end of the story for me, and make sure that this one doesn't end abruptly, because I think my last one did, and I want to make sure this one doesn't. So I'm all for taking the feedback and making myself a better writer because of it. I think book 2, you're going to give 5 stars to. I do think you're going to read book 2, and I think the ending is just going to blow your mind so much. I think you're going to say, oh.
I think I will, because just reading this and just reading this one, and like I said, 4.5 is my rating for Kiss. And there were a lot of things that I was like, I wish she would have stayed with this. I wish she would have gave me more of that. I wish this. And then when I put it all together and read from start to finish, I was like, oh my goodness, I really like this story. And one of it is a romance story, and it was like tasteful. Even the sex scenes, if we would call it sex. Some people would say, oh, that's nothing, Ellen, but it was very tasteful and it was not explicit. So I was like, I can go further, because I'm a Christian, just like you're a Christian, but I like to read romance books as well as other books, and I call my Christian books and my other books. But I think that it's good when you can write like that. I'm not telling those writers who I read their stuff and it may have some innuendo in it. As long as it stayed to the story, I'm good with it. I'm good with it because I'm married, and this happens in life, but it was a good storyline and it was well written. In fact, since we're talking about it, a small hashtag spoiler is when it got with Nicholas being romantic to Charlotte, he was very gentle with her. And he treated her as if he heard something which the readers would know. And based on what he heard, he could have went more, and they'll read what she had promised to herself, what she wanted to do with herself and her life and her vision of marriage or relationship. So once getting wind of that, and he can kind of see that because he did treat her gentle. He really
Yeah.
did. He
And
really never tried to do anything to her.
no,
Never did
no.
before hearing what he heard.
Yeah. And I know that when you read more into the series, you'll see, because it's very clear that when you find out about Nicholas, that he was a playboy in his day. You know, he
Yes.
came from money. He was in upstate New York. They were called prep boys of upstate New York. And so he's not shy to his sexual conquest. And the fact that he very much, and he says that in the first book, you know, he
Yep.
called himself a whore. You know, he's very honest. You see that he still respected her. He
Yes,
could have
he did.
easily taken advantage, you know, but he loves her so deeply. And I hope readers see that, you know, him saying no to certain things proves
Yes.
so much that he loves her so incredibly much.
And I love the scene, hashtag spoiler, of the rejection of she really wanted to be intimate with her, and the rejection that she received from him spiraled her out. And I think that's why she really sort of kind of went back after him, because it was at that part where she was just a melting beast at that time. And he's like, no. She's like, what? I worked up to this point and no? That was the rejection, I think, that she fed more into wanting him than anything else.
And let me tell you, this is very important for me. Being a romance author, it's very hard to, I made a decision years ago that I was going to make sure my characters were married before they had sex, because I felt convicted. I wrote 2 books and my characters had sex, and I felt very convicted as a Christian writing it. I published it. It was out. The first book hit #1 on several different categories. That book I made a couple thousand off of in 1 week. 6 months after the book came down, at 6 months after the book came out, I was in bed and I just felt so convicted in my spirit. And I took the book down. And then I took the second book down. And I said, I will publish them again when I rewrite them. And those are the books that I rewrote, Being Yours, that I'm writing that just rewrote, and Loving You. So those are the books that are coming out. October 28th, Being Yours is coming out again. And then November 28th, Loving You is coming out again. And then December 28th, the last book in the series, Wanting You, is coming out. And so I felt so convicted with that. And I said, you know what? I have to write I have to write in a way that I don't feel convicted, right? Because at the end of the day, writing for me it used to be, it started off being about the joy of writing. I made a lot of money off of it. And then it became about the money. And then it became about the writing again. Just holding my book in my hand is enough for me. Handing my book to my mother, her reading it and putting it on her bookshelf is enough for me. Having pieces of myself that my daughter will eventually have is enough for me. I enjoy readership. I enjoy my Kristi Tailor, fan base. I love my readers very much. However, I could no longer write in a sense where I felt convicted, So I said, okay, how can I write romance, still have sex, but not feel convicted? I know my characters have to be married first. It's so hard plotting out a story where the characters can't have sex by chapter 4, which is what a lot of people want when you read romance. You want sex. I mean, if you didn't want to read, if you didn't want sex, you would read something like a thriller or a suspense or sci-fi. Romance is romance, and sex is included in romance. It's the buildup, it's the courting, it's sex, it's kissing. And so it was very hard. And I'm very proud of myself, because guess what? They don't have sex until book 3. And even though that's the case, book 2 sold really well, and I have really good reviews except for that one. And then book 3 sold even better, and I have really great reviews. And so they didn't have sex until the end of book 3, but there's so much drama in the books that it's okay. And I tease, there's a lot of teasing, but teasing is as far as I go until they have sex. And that's all of my stories. And so it is very challenging being, how can I write brand new stories every time where the female and male do not have sex until they're married? How can I not retell the same story 4 and 5 times? How can I, and it takes a lot of brainstorming. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes a lot of brainstorming to figure out how I can create these dilemmas where the characters fall in love and can be romantic by a decent point in the novel. But it's been working for me, and my sales have not died down. They haven't. And I've stuck, stayed true to myself with no sex before marriage in my books. And so, yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I am a fan. I am
Thank you.
definitely a fan. In reading this book, I am definitely a fan. So I got to get the other ones. And so what do you want your readers to walk away with reading your series? Let's just say series.
Just a series, yes. I would love for my readers to walk away with the understanding that you're going to get suspense, you're going to get romance, you're going to get a little touch of thriller in this series. You're also going to get a fantastic love story that hits so many different themes and topics and covers so many different realistic realities when it comes to relationships. They are dynamic. My characters are dynamic. They're very rounded, and they go through real life circumstances. It's not a boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy marries a girl happily ever after. It's a lot in between. And there are realistic situations in between that I'm sure every woman has endured. I don't write sweet romance. I write realistic romance, and with realism, there's heartache and pain, but there's also overcomings. And so my female character, Charlotte, starts off like a lot of us do, timid and passive and not quite sure of ourselves as women. And by the end of the story, she is a lioness. She is fierce and she is strong and she is powerful and she knows how to create her own happily ever after. And I think that by the end of the series, I think there's going to be a huge applaud for her as a character because she has overcome so much. And I want readers to take that away. We're not all lionesses in our 20s, but by the end, I think we've learned, how to move around certain situations and be the best part of ourselves. So I think it's a series that women will love to read. It's saucy and it's spunky and it's fun, but it's very, 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 very realistic. It will remind you of Young and the Restless. That's the best thing. It is a soap opera. It's a soap opera, and it will remind you of Young and the Restless. Absolutely.
Wow. That's going to be good. So,
yeah.
Kristi, the other books that you're writing that I've seen you drop on Facebook, is that part of this series or that's a whole new genre standalone? Could you tell us about those?
Yes, I'd be happy to. That series is called the Being Yours series. The series we just discussed is a Winter's Tale series. This is the Being Yours series. It's a trilogy. It's Being Yours, Loving You, Wanting You. It's 3 books in the series. It focuses on main character Charlotte Reed, who runs away from her abusive husband from Baltimore, Maryland to North Carolina, Wake Forest, North Carolina, to start over with her son, Carter. And it's focuses on her relationship with a teacher, Carter's teacher, who she ends up falling in love with while she's on the run from her husband. So it's a completely different series and with different characters.
Yes, I can't wait. I think I'm going to be over there at that. And you also, when you dropped it, I say you have a trailer and stuff, and you gave a warning. Could you tell those warning signs that you want people to know that's on your book?
The series is very intense. It is not a heart-shaped story. I call them heart-shaped stories when it's not one of those. It is heartbreaking. before it is sunshine and roses. There are a few triggers that I made sure I mentioned. There is a rape scene, so sexual assault. There is physical abuse, emotional abuse. There's verbal abuse. There's strong language. And so it's a lot, and it's explicit sex scenes, and because of the rape scene. And so those are some triggers, especially if there's a woman who has been physically abused in the past. I just don't want them to think that they're going to, the cover is gorgeous. The cover has beautiful rose petals, red rose petals falling around an enchanted like mirror. And so it's a gorgeous cover, and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be the epic romance. It's devastating, the words that are inside. And so I just did not want the cover to be a representation necessarily of the story. It is a representation in the sense that the rose petals falling represent her and how she's no longer whole. When a rose is whole, it's together. When it's no longer whole and it's now dying off, the petals fall off, hence the rose petals falling. And the mirror is a representation of being able to see who you are as a person and the reflection of who you are. And she doesn't see herself anymore. And so the cover is very symbolic, but when you look at it, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a fairy tale. It's far from a fairy tale. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't, as they call it, pirate people in to under false pretenses. When you see a cover and you think it's going to be about something like clickbait almost, I didn't want to clickbait people into purchasing this book thinking it was going to be a fairy tale. And it's a really intense, it's an intense romance, but it is a romance because, again, just like Charlotte's story, it's very tragic what happens to Logan in the beginning, but then she falls in love. And so it is a romance, but there are some things that she has to go through before it becomes that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let the folks know where you at. Where can they reach you?
You can reach me on Facebook at Kristi Tailor, or I'm sorry, at author Kristi Tailor, or you can reach me on Instagram at author Kristi Tailor. You can also reach me on Goodreads at author Kristi Tailor. So it's at author Kristi Tailor on Facebook, on Goodreads, and on Instagram.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that I'm going to love, it sounds like I'm going to reach out to those other series that stands alone from this series, because I didn't want to say that it was a standalone because it's in a series, but I want them to know that these two series stand alone. They're not connected.
They're not joined.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate
Thank you for having me.
time.
This was so awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Good night.
Good night.
What's coming up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys for being here again. Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Also, guys, coming up on the 21st, we have a book that is quite different from what was going on now. We're going to talk about combat-related PTS and PTSD, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Our author or guest for that night, we're going to talk about her husband's story, which is the Willie Gray story, and the author is Melvina Gray. This book here gives an account of what she went through living with her husband having PTSD, and she's very transparent in talking about what she went through with her husband. And you guys are, hopefully you guys can see that. You guys are in for a treat. And she really talks about it. And those of you know some people that struggle or family that are just don't want to talk about this, this is a conversation piece to be had about it, talking about PTSD. So it's a lot of stuff that she went through. I, as a reader, reading this book, I'm like, get out, get out, get out. But she do talk about why she stayed. So stay tuned for that. That is on the 21st of October at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will also have on the 26th, we're going to talk about our book. We still have this Lineage of Grace. We're going to finish this out so that we can come with our second book. And this book is Lineage of Grace is by Francine Rivers. It is 5 women of the Bible, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. So that's Bathsheba. So you guys get ready for that. And I love what Francine Rivers did to this book. She gave it voice. So not necessarily that they may have said these words that she's talking about, but she do have biblical scriptures to back up the storyline. And also on the 28th of October, we're going to talk to Rakea Gibson and also Angela Spears. These women, they keep it 40. We're going to talk about women talking about sports. They're women commentators, and their website is www.blackgirlstalksports.com. So we're going to talk to them, and we're going to talk a little sports on the 28th. You'll see these girls keeping it sporty while talking about sports. So stay tuned for that, guys. That's going to come up on the 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So guys, if you are an author and you would like to have your book on our platform, do tag yourself here. We are on Instagram, ESP Presents. We're on Twitter at Miss Suds. And we're also on Facebook under ESP Book Chat and ESP Presents. So keep it locked. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your data time. We really appreciate you guys being here. And also this is going to go up on SoundCloud as well as YouTube. So thank you guys so much. Keep it locked. Signing off. Bye-bye.